Good morning, Oklahoma, and welcome to Cow-Calf Corner. I'm Mark Johnson, and this week we're going to talk about managing your cow herd during severely cold weather. Winter has most definitely arrived and seems like it's going to get a little worse here in weeks to come. And so today we address some basic things to keep in mind as you're managing that cow herd and trying to help them avoid cold stress. Big thing that we get into on this topic is just how cold impacts nutritional requirements of cows. Those of you that join us regularly know we have spoken in the last few months about what those nutritional requirements of the cow herd are. We mainly concern ourselves with energy intake, crude protein intake. We know that we'd like to have cows this time of year in a body condition score of 5, maybe a little bit higher, particularly on spring calving herds, probably a little higher than 5, maybe up to 6. So we'd consider that a moderate body condition. What we find is if the cows are dry and there's not excessive wind, cows are typically comfortable down to about 30 degrees or even as low as 20 degrees. Meaning that those nutritional requirements that we find in our beef cattle manual pertain on a day-to-day basis to the energy and crude protein requirements that cattle need. Now, how does cold factor into this? What we generally think of as a rule of thumb is for every degree of temperature that we are below 30 degrees Fahrenheit, we bump energy requirements about 1%. So if we're looking at a cow that would normally take about 10 pounds of TDN per day to meet her energy requirements, and we drop the temperature to about 10 degrees, then we're going to bump that by about 20%, or meaning she would need about 12 pounds a day of TDN. So that's rule number one. Assuming cows are in adequate body condition, 5 or better, no wind, no rain. Now, if we add in the elements, if we start dealing with wind chill, moisture, cattle that are wet in their hair coat, or even cattle that are thinner condition, we introduce another dynamic in that is going to radically spike the daily energy requirements of the cow herd. The Mesonet Cattle Comfort Index, which can be accessed online, is very informative as to what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis with regard to wind chill and what those extra energy needs might be for our cow herd. Another thing to keep in mind with regard to cows, any shelter, any windbreak, or even just getting some dry bedding on the ground to keep them from having to lie down on frozen ground is all going to contribute to keeping them more at a normal rate as far as what they need nutritionally each day. A couple of final thoughts on this topic. If we are calving when it's severely cold, we need to provide a lot of extra attention to those newborn calves. They basically have no tolerance, particularly whenever the temperatures get below 20 degrees Fahrenheit. You add in some wet weather, some frozen ground. We need to be on top of those newborns because they're going to go pretty quick if we're not there to get them into a warm, dry environment shortly after they hit the ground. Final thought, I always talk about the value of water and hydration. This time of year when it's cold is something that's easy to overlook, but just remember that cattle do need water every day. It helps them regulate body temperature. And so as we think about these energy requirements, those additional things that are going to come along in severely cold weather, don't forget water. Final thought, if you're going to provide extra nutrition, you're thinking about extra energy, try to feed things that are nutrient dense or energy dense, in particular, that are high in digestible fiber as a means to make up that energy deficit on those really cold days. And an example of that would be something like soybean hulls or dry distiller's grains that you can use to get that extra bump to meet the energy requirements for your cow herd. I hope this helps. I hope you're all withstanding the cold winter weather, and thanks for joining us on Cow-Calf Corner.